Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. Well, we see a similar rotation on the defense that we saw last year, this upcoming season. And is Shannon Dawson an actual better hire than retaining and promoting Frank Ponce, right? So I was getting some work done to my truck today, and so I said, let me go over to PFF and let me go look at some things, right? Because I know one thing that a lot of guys were kind of upset about was the amount of rotating that we did on the defensive side of the ball. And so I went over, I looked at Marshall, looked at the snap count, and what I saw was a lot of high snap counts for guys playing the same position. Obviously, the defensive line is what I was mostly focusing in on, because one of the issues that a lot of us as fans had last year was about the amount of snaps the limited amount of snaps that, Leonard Taylor played in. But I kind of take the stance that, Leonard was kind of on and off. You may have situations where he played a good game, like against Virginia, and then you have certain games where you just don't see him, and people try to have somewhat revisionist history in terms of making it seem as if we got a Virginia type of effort every single game out, regardless of whether or not he was in a groove. But this is not to berate or try to demoralize or try to speak ill about Leonard Taylor. It's just, it's just kind of one of those particular situations. So I went in looking, and I saw a lot of high snap counts for multiple guys playing the same position, but that was to be expected because many people had made the note that Marshall's offense wasn't that good. So obviously, if you don't have a good offense, then the defense is going to be tasked a lot more playing, and so it just makes sense for the defense to have guys rotating in and out, because you got to think about, we got to try to preserve guys throughout the duration of the entire season. And so kind of when you factor that in from last year, when the offense that we had was somewhat so putrid, and then you got to think about having guys for the duration of the entire season, and then you think about some of the injuries that we had, to me it kind of made sense. It didn't make sense in every game, but it's not I don't want to look at things on a game-by-game basis because it's a small picture. I think you got to look at the big picture. But from what I took away from the snap counts at Marshall, the guys rotated. Now, obviously, the starters got the bulk of said snaps, but they seem to be within 30, 40, 20 some odd snaps amongst the 4 D linemen that I did see. I saw 4 edges. They all played roughly the same amount of snaps. So that just lets me know that there is a heavy rotation. But again, like I said, you have to look at that from the standpoint that, well, the offense was bad, right? So, but to me, I think the rotation will stay the same. But I think that maybe with a little bit more maturity, Leonard being older, Jared Harrison Hunt being older, those guys may be leaned on to play, some more snaps this upcoming season, especially with some of the youth that we have coming up behind them, right? So I kind of still see the rotation, but I do see a situation where we do get our veterans playing more snaps towards the beginning of the season. And then as the season wanes on, if guys are progressing and developing at the rate that the staff feels they should, then we should see them being interjected into the game a lot more. But that's just a quick review. So it seems like the rotation kind of will still be somewhat of the same, because Coach Hayes made a very, very interesting point, and I've never heard anyone say this. And sometimes it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's when people say, sometimes you're looking for an answer and it's right up underneath your nose. And I kind of liken that to what he said. He said, you think about it, your special teams units, for the most part, are going to be defensive guys. So think about it like this. The kickoff team, most of the defensive guys, because you want guys to tackle. The punt team, most of the defensive guys, because you want guys to tackle. Field goal, that's a mix of guys. Maybe even punt return, you may have some, mix of guys on there as well. But you do have a situation where it seems that defensive guys, more times than not, are going to end up playing more snaps in totality than offensive guys. So you do need those situations where you do need to rotate guys out, because the objective is you want the best players on the field at all times. So neglecting special teams could somewhat be a hindrance, but sometimes you don't. Obviously, of course, you don't want to send All-American Cam Kitchens down the field on kickoff, and guy may blindside him or chop block and lose it for the season. But special teams is very, very important. So, but that's that. So, again, as I continue to look at content, as I continue to read message boards, I still see the Shannon Dawson thing is still somewhat of a talking point. And so I said I haven't seen anyone bring up the aspect of, was Shannon Dawson a better hire than just retaining and keeping Ponce? So when you look at the resumes, obviously, of course, Shannon Dawson has the bigger job for the simple fact that he did coach at West Virginia, and he was also an offensive coordinator at the University of Kentucky. And Frank Ponce, for the most part, has spent the majority of his time at App State, went to Louisville, but wasn't necessarily the offensive play caller in many aspects. But all in all, resumes look similar. Frank Ponce, more so than Shannon Dawson, has more experience in calling the type of offense that maybe Coach Cristobal wants. But it's kind of one of those deals where you got the people that don't like Shannon Dawson, that Shannon Dawson hired. You kind of have to say, well, what did you do without Dana Holgorsen? Because I see the clip or the video floating around of the game where obviously, which that's probably one of the more memorable games of college football, and at least in recent memory, when West Virginia just opened up a can on Clemson, on Kevin Steele, right? And by all accounts, at least the way it was recorded, Shannon Dawson was the co-offensive coordinator for that particular team. Don't necessarily know if he was the play caller. Most people say Dana Holgorsen was the play caller. I mean, I don't care too much. I don't care enough about it. But I do know what we saw with Frank Ponce calling plays, because we saw it in 2020. An App State team that just the very next year, 2022, this year, defeated a Texas A&M team. So I don't know how much talent from that 2021 squad was left over for their matchup against the 2022 Texas A&M squad, but that was a pretty good team. That was a pretty good offensive scheme that Ponce was able to dial up. Obviously, our defense was putrid. It was putrid again this year in many aspects, but I honestly don't know. Like I said on a previous video, the air raid that the first inception of the air raid that people are thinking about, I think that is what's the battle cry for some of the Dawson detractors. But like I said, I would love to debate any one of you about trying to convince me that Phil Longo and Todd Monken are not air raid guys who were able to build off of the original air raid. And so by just pure definition and by just based on background, that was an air raid offense that UNC ran as well as Georgia ran. It just wasn't in the inception that guys just do not want to erase from their particular memory bank. But again, I'm open. I want that. But just looking at it, getting back to the original point, just what the information that we have, Shannon Dawson, in my opinion, is technically not a better hire than Frank Ponce, if that's the direction that we want to go. Because I know some people made the statement that due to the amount of money going into the program, that it wouldn't have looked right for Mario to hire Frank Ponce initially. But here we are a year later, and it's like, you hired Frank Ponce. Maybe a lesser Frank Ponce, but you did hire Frank Ponce again. But I don't know. But like I said, I like Shannon Dawson because I feel like I know what the offense will look like, and I think it will benefit all parties. But That's to be decided. But as always, man, like, share, subscribe, comment, and as always, it's all about the you.